Hey, this is Dave. Before we get started with the podcast, I want to let you know about the Agile Network's Fusion Micro Conference, which is happening this March 26th and 27th, 2025. The conference focuses on artificial intelligence, Agile, and project management, and how we fuse these things together to deliver value for our customers. It's going to challenge some of your ways of thinking, introduce you to some new ideas, and probably answer questions you didn't even know you had yet. We'll be putting on over 100 sessions over the course of 2 days, so whether you're brand new to the space or you're a seasoned pro, you definitely want to check out the Agile Network's Fusion Micro Conference on March 26th and 27th. Just go to theagilenetwork.com. See you there.
If you learn to work the old way, but the new way's what you need, my job's to make that switch from old to new. Suck less for you than it did for me. Here on Drunken PM Radio. Whoa! Here on Drunken PM Radio. Whoa!
Hey, this is Dave. You're about to watch my interview with Preston Hunter from Lucid. I originally reached out to Preston because I found out that Lucid can tie directly into Jira. So the sync is bidirectional. If you don't want to use Jira, you can actually use Lucid and it will sync the data back and forth. So that could be a really great thing for teams that are kind of overwhelmed by some of the intricacies of Jira. Gives them a really simple way to visualize the work and engage with the data, and you still get everything you need on the back end. So that was where we started. But throughout the course of the interview, I kept pushing with questions of things we hadn't talked about. So there's a bunch of times when I said, I'll probably have to cut this, but every single time Preston was able to show me a way to do the things I wanted to do, including having a board of my work, which has some stuff syncing with Jira, my work stuff, and personal stuff, which is mine not syncing with Jira, which for me, in terms of making my life easier, that's awesome. That's super amazing. And it got to a point in the interview a little over halfway through where I had this kind of epiphany about tools like this. And this is sort of one of the main reasons I think everybody should watch this interview. The visualization tools can add a layer that sits on top of the backend management tools, right? Whether it's Jira, Azure DevOps, Microsoft Project, a lot of those tools get really intricate and deep, and you have to really know what you're doing if you're going to get a lot out of them. But if I can use Lucid on top of those tools, then I don't have to worry about them, right? I can make it easier for my team members and my managers to be able to update stuff and see stuff and understand stuff without having to understand the back end. And for someone like me, who comes from a traditional background and is now able to look at stuff like a Kanban board that has predecessor relationships or dependencies showing up on the board with the cards across teams, across projects. That is amazing. Because what that does is it completely destroys the wall that exists between traditional project management and Agile. It doesn't matter. We're just managing work. And these visualization tools make it easier to do that without worrying about which religious faction you fall into. So I am really excited about this interview. I hope you'll enjoy it. It does get kind of geeky, but it's well worth the time investment. So thanks for watching. Hey, this is Dave Prior. Welcome to the Reluctant Agilist. Today I've got a very special guest, Preston Hunter. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day supporting Liverpool FC. Preston is a senior product manager at Lucid Software. And we're going to go through some stuff today. So if you are somebody who works with Jira and also works with visualizing work and struggles with the back and forth, we're going to solve some of that today. So before we get into it, though, Preston, would you mind giving these folks a little bit of background on you?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And thanks for having me on today. Happy to be here and talk about Agile and project management and how to better do that and visualize it as well. So yeah, my name is Preston Hunter, Senior Product Manager here at Lucid. Like you said, I've been here for like 3 years or so. Coming up on 3 years, I think, and worked on a bunch of different stuff at Lucid at my time here. But over the last year, I've been working on what we call our Agile initiative. So It's how can we build tools to help teams that are going through Agile or trying to be Agile, or call it what you want, right? Helping them be more effective, more efficient as well. And then at Lucid in general, we're a visual collaboration suite of tools. So we have 3 different products within our suite today. 2 that are kind of in our core suite, and then a third. So those 2 are Lucid Chart and Lucid Spark. Lucid Chart is great for flow charting and intelligent diagramming. And then Lucid Spark is a collaborative whiteboard, so great for, planning and ideating, aligning with your teams and collaborating especially. And then our third one is called Lucid Scale. We won't talk much about that today, I don't think, but it's a product that helps you visualize your cloud architecture.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to focus on the Agile side of things. And I would like to offer a bit of a case study and then just toss it to you and see what you can do, what you could have done if you'd been there to make these people's lives suck a little bit less. So I've had like several transformation gigs where things like this happened recently, but there was one in particular where a team from in a very traditional organization is going to move over to Agile. And the first thing we're going to do is get them set up doing Kanban. But even though the company's decided that they've paid Atlassian a bucket of money so that they can have Jira and everyone's Agile, it's going to take a couple of weeks for the administrators to get their Jira stuff set up. And we have to get these people going. And they've never done Kanban before, so we go with a visual collaboration tool. A different one than yours, but that's how they started. And it did help them figure out their workflow. But then when it came time to put it into Jira, like everything got lost. And then when it was in Jira, they're like, why do we have to work that way when we're used to working this way? Why can't we just keep doing what we were doing? One team ended up using Microsoft Project to learn how to do Kanban, which I can't even get my head around. But in that space of people that aren't used to Agile facing Jira for the first time, it can be very daunting. There's a lot of complexity for folks in there. And I think in Kanban, we're just trying to make things as simple as we can. To ease that path, kind of. So I'm going to just basically dump that on your feet. And maybe you can show us some of the things that Lucid can do with respect to integrating with Jira.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll share my screen here and kind of walk through a few things. But to first start and react to that case study that you're describing, is that extremely common, right? Like I'm talking with customers and people all the time, whether they use our products or not, they're trying to do some sort of a similar workflow, or how can we be more collaborative? And like Jira is really great for what it does, but it's just not as collaborative as I'd like it to be. Or you said it's really daunting, right? I was actually just talking to one of our project managers last week, and she was talking about a certain feature in Jira, and she was giving a training on it to other project managers because she was like an expert. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love this. And then after 2 weeks, they were just like, Jordan, I can't do it. I couldn't beat the learning curve. Like I just couldn't, it's too much. It was way too overwhelming, and I couldn't get over it, and to a point where I was using the tool. So just validating that that's very real. People run into this all the time. And visual collaboration is a great way to help solve that pain.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just share screen here and kind of talk about what we're referencing. So this is the Lucid Spark product that I had mentioned before, which is a digital whiteboard and great for ideating and planning with your team. So what you have here, it's the titled program board. So maybe it's a set of teams that are coming together to plan their work. But I'll kind of, before we get to this, all of this, I'll kind of walk through what you had mentioned and Kanban and how it might work.
Sure.
So over on the left toolbar over here, there's these organizers and containers that we have. And what immediately came to my mind is that what we call a dynamic table when you had mentioned that. So it's easy drag and drop over here from the left. And then you can name these columns, what you want. So like to do and doing, done, right? At its most simplest form. And then these rows, you can also give them text or titles to whatever that you want as well. And then you might use a Lucid card here. This is your, item of work.
Okay.
And you can bring these through into this column and then go from to do, doing, done, right? This is the most simplest way in our product that you could do this today. And gives you this nice Kanban flow. But that's great and all, but you mentioned this Jira thing, right? And how overwhelming and complex it is. So we actually have a really nice, robust integration, two-way integration with Jira. So I'll kind of
Okay.
show how this dynamic table and Kanban style would work that way. So over here, we have this Jira icon. You click on it, Jira integration, right? Pull it
Yeah.
up, and you can either import Jira issues from your Jira instance. You
Okay.
can create a new one right here in Lucid. So if I go on this, I can give it my summary, description, give its project, team, all the above. And that's going to actually sync back to Jira and also be live in Jira. And then at that point, any updates you make in Jira are also going to show up in Lucid and vice versa. You can make edits in Lucid and that'll show in Jira.
Can you pause there for a second? Because I wanna like
Yeah.
just mansplain that to everybody for a minute. What that means. So I have Jira on the back end basically. My team's working in your tool. We have a Kanban board set up. It looks very simple. And I actually like this. I mean, you have great templates, but this seems more like what I would want to use if I was doing it.
Okay.
I'm not going to be tracking cycle time in here, but things like that will be tracked back in Jira. If I'm syncing up, it'll capture the time of the event happening and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I get all the robustness on the back end from the reporting standpoint. People who want to look in Jira, they're going to see it all. But for me and my team who want something simple and basic as we get started with this, I can just work here and focus on visualizing and understanding the workflow instead of figuring out how to do stuff in Jira.
Yep, that's exactly right. So you're marrying that source of truth, but with this nice visual front end that's collaborative and engaging, right? It's no more as one person sharing their screen and walking through line by line in Jira. You're all in a board together and can see it, can move things around and make adjustments.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's the simplest way, right? Using only Lucid, but everyone has a system of record. In this case, we're talking about Jira. So what you can do is then, like I said, create a new one, or you can import from your Jira instance. So I'm not showing the whole like login flow here and connection piece, but it's a pretty simple step to just connect. All you do is give your Jira authorization inside of Lucid here, and then you're connected, and then you get access to this.
Okay. So it's not a constant. I have to sync. It's not happening constantly, right?
Nope. We have what's called webhooks enabled, so it's like any changes, it's like within seconds that it'll reflect in both.
Wow.
In both.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So yeah. So if I want to import my Jira issues here, I can do that here, and we have this nice. So I don't know if you're familiar with JQL, or maybe people viewing the podcast might be. But talk about overwhelming, talk about power user. That's JQL, right? So I'm not going to dive into that, but a really powerful functionality that you can use and just pull in a Jira query and bring in all those tickets. But actually what's really cool here is that we give you these nice, easy filters where you can go, okay, I need to pull in from this project first, and then this board, this sprint, this assignee, and now you're getting to the tickets that are relevant to you instead of this massive chaos of Jira instance from your company.
Okay, and that's going to persist as well. So this is even more exciting to me. I could be doing personal Kanban and pulling from the larger team board into my own personal board. So I only have to look at my stuff. I can manage that work on a day-to-day basis. And could I also have, I might have to edit this part out. Could I also have other cards in there that are not in Jira?
Like Lucid cards themselves.
Yeah. Like if I was doing personal Kanban, I'd have work stuff, but I might have personal stuff. I don't want change the cat litter to show up in the Jira board.
Yeah. So you can have both of those on a board themselves. So what you can do here is if you're doing personal Kanban, right, of your own work and just using Lucid cards, you can do that. And then you can have another board of your Jira data so they're together.
Okay.
On the same board, same context, but these Lucid cards that are not Jira cards are not messing with your Jira stuff.
Awesome. Okay.
But what's really cool that I'll highlight here is, let's say, or a common workflow that we get, right, is you start with sticky notes first.
Yeah.
Doing all this planning and sticky notes is a great, easy way to do it. And then you either go from sticky notes to then a Lucid card, right? So if we're going workflow here, And then what you can do is you can either convert the sticky note or the Lucid card to a Jira card.
Wow.
But I'm just going to do this. So item of work for Dave, right? Give it a description of whatever you want to call it. We'll call it a task. I'll assign it to, this is my demo instance. Okay, I'll assign it to Dewey. Convert that item, and now you're creating it from Jira. So it's a nice like logical flow of how people work today, of like plan, brainstorm, get a little bit more solid, and then get it really solid and have it to my system of record inside of Jira itself.
Okay. That's
so this
really
is
awesome.
thinking here, and you can see it created that line item as well.
Yeah. Okay, so people don't have to, if people are overwhelmed by Jira, the main thing is they can use the interface that you guys have and focus on visualizing and understanding and the collaboration part without getting, I mean, I just went through a thing last week where I was doing an exit interview for a pilot, and as far as these people are concerned, Kanban and Jira are the same thing. Like they can't see a difference between a tool and a workflow because the way that it's just presented to them, it's all together. So they kind of lose the agency that they would have with Kanban.
Sure.
Some of the freedom there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so diving even deeper into what you can do here, and what you're saying like really resonates, right? I mentioned I talk to customers all the time and people trying to solve these pains, is like maybe the project manager, they're really comfortable with Jira, but maybe their stakeholders or the engineers or the people they're working with, they're like, at least for me and the engineers I work with as a product manager, they're like, I don't want to touch Jira if I don't have to, right? Like, I don't want to go in there, I want to do my work.
100%. I want to do the work. I don't want to spend time fighting with Jira. Yeah,
exactly. And so what this does, it offers that flexibility for a team and for other people that are just like, hey, I don't want to go in and mess with all that. I just need an easy, quick way to interact with Jira, but I don't need to know all the ins and outs.
Yeah.
So then this gets really interesting. Speaking to project management, is before I showed this dynamic table shape to the left, but now we have this timeline shape, which is what you're seeing here. You can drag out from the left as well. I'll just delete that one because I already have this one.
I'm smiling because it looks kind of Gantt charty, and I miss my Gantt chart so much.
Yeah, right. This is like it's like the better version of a Gantt chart that's like flexible and visual and like dynamic.
Yeah.
So these
Great
are
for a roadmap.
Jira. Yeah, exactly. Great for road mapping. So this is a Jira Epic card, right? That I've pulled in. I have its statuses, et cetera, et cetera. And like, if I'm in that planning phase that we talked about, I can just drag and drop this around. Okay. And as I change the dates to these cards, they're going to change to that system of record in Jira as well.
That's very cool.
So if you want it to, then you can come out and get this great view of multiple teams are involved here. Here's the project. Here's the timeline. Here's the date. And here's all my Jira information. And it's like, oh, I need to change the estimate on this. Go ahead. And boom, it's syncing back with Jira as well. So you don't ever have to go back into Jira if you don't want.
Okay. So from an Obeya standpoint, then they're actually living inside your system because they could have everything that they need on this board.
That's correct.
Like the stuff that's integrated with Jira, plus maybe like a Nico thing and whatever other artifacts they want can all be in one place.
Yep. Wow. And just to further solidify that, and what's super cool about this is on these Jira cards, you'll see this 2 linked issues button. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to pull in my different dependencies from Jira. So you can now instantly see that this ticket, right, is blocking this one, or I'll show one here too as well. You get these red lines, blocks coming here. So going back to your point is like, you can do all that information or see all the information from Jira and adjust it. So that's cool. What's even cooler is, let's say you're in the middle of a planning session or you're working with a team where you're doing quarterly planning, PI planning, everyone has a different name for it, call it what you want, but you're like, hey, I noticed your team is working on this thing. We're dependent on that. And that information hardly ever makes its way back to Jira, right? it's something that happens in a meeting. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
sticky note that's captured, something like that. But now what you can do is just simply drag and drop a line between the two and say, hey, this ticket is blocked by that one. I'm going to go ahead and click blocks. And now it's syncing back to Jira, and you have an
Wow.
accurate record of what's going on.
So one of the things, I mean, to me, this is sort of like the missing link for project managers who switch over to an agile approach, is that those dependencies disappeared for me when I lost my Gantt chart, and it's the reason that I missed the Gantt chart, because those relationships are really, really important to see, and we just say, oh, you just handled through prioritization and the backlog, and like, not really. That's a really powerful feature there.
Yeah, and now you can, speaking of your Gantt chart and dependencies, right? Now you can visually see, it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If project 65 blocks 60, and we had planned to start this one before 65 was done, we got to make some adjustments, and this actually needs to look something more like that, right?
Okay.
So you can capture things on the fly and make adjustments, and again, always syncing back with Jira so that you're not misrepresenting information or getting something screwed up, things like that.
That's really cool. How does it work? And now, because my brain is in this space now where I'm thinking about other project manager-y things that I'd want to know about.
Okay.
What about capacity and things like that? Does that factor in? Are you able to see like how overloaded people are or how staffed a thing is?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll show a couple of things there. And I will also say that we're actively working on that problem that you're talking about. But we do have some things in place today already. So the first thing that I will show is this like bar chart thing that's showing you status of each part of your workflow. And this is just, you can create this super easily here. If I click on the timeline, there's this button, planning and tracking, and I can add a progress bar, and that's just, boom, it's right there.
Wow.
And I can customize it, name it, do what I want, and make those adjustments here. And I can make also, if I want to get more granular, if I don't want to show to do, or if I want to change the order, colors, card count versus estimate, you can do that. So this is something new, and we're actively, that's a big pain point that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
So we're actively making progress. So that's one thing. Another I will show you is down here. This is kind of more going back to that Kanban type board, and I can show this. So I showed the very simple one up above that was just Lucid environment, right? But when you take a look here, we're now pulling in information from Jira itself. So these are no longer Lucid cards, right? They're Jira cards. Here you can see, and they have all this Jira information on them, and like anything that you would want to know about it. If you want even more of the fields, like anything that you're pulling from Jira, we're giving you access to here.
Okay.
So talk about overwhelming, right? So anything that you could want or visualize and bring into Lucid.
Overwhelming to normal people. For a project manager, that's like crack. That's awesome.
Exactly. So that's pretty cool. And I'm getting to your question, but I'm also just showing along the way. So now, instead of the normal Lucid table, this is now backed by Jira. So you can see that I'm pivoting here by status and parent. So I can go from different Jira fields. We don't support everything yet, but you've got project, sprint, status, etc., team, right? Right now I'm doing status, and I'm also doing parent. So what's the parent link, Epic link over here on the left? And we talked about that two-way sync. So we're coming in here as a team, and whoever, is working on this ticket can move this over into in progress. And now it's in progress, and that's syncing back to Jira as well. So in Jira, in this parent project 37, AI-powered timeline predictions, updated and back. So it gets really quite powerful. And you said crack. One of the things that people absolutely love, and we're going to get into the crack and the power user,
crack.
is going back to JQL. I mentioned is can be pretty daunting to some, but for those project manager folks that love this stuff and live on it, you can connect this table to a JQL query so that it's only pulling in those tickets that are like within your parameters here. And if
Okay.
something updates inside of Jira, then it'll bring that in so that you're always knowing that you're up to date and you don't have to continually go through this flow that I showed you, right? Okay, it's a new day, someone added a new ticket, now we need to get the new information. You just come here and press this button to make sure that it's up to sync, and you're up to sync, and now you're only pulling. So I do this personally for my teams based off of like what we have planned for that quarter or anything that's assigned to us, right? Or if it's a sprint specific, just say, hey, anything that's on this sprint inside of Jira, pull it into my Lucid board and it's always going to be there.
All right. So I have two different questions about this. So one, if I am somebody in the PMO that knows there's like 4 or 5 tickets in different projects that are like, these are the ones everybody here's freaking out about, like I have to keep tabs on them.
Yep.
I can create a view that's going to pull from different projects and show me where those 5 things, what their status is at any point in time. So that's like my alert dashboard, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And if I am a manager who only cares about my one thing, and somebody's told me I can't keep barging in and asking team members to tell me the status of stuff, they could build a view of this for that person that would show them the stuff they care about and alleviate them of the need to go bug the team.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And
Okay.
now you're making me think of even more functionality that I can show. You're starting
I'm trying
to
to be careful with my questions because I don't want to ask one where you're like, no.
You're pulling you're getting to the geeky side of me, right? Of like, yeah, you can do a lot of interesting things that I can show you with conditional formatting as well. But totally, you could totally do that. Like, this is not limited to any one project. These are just the parent links pulling in. But if you're cross projects and you're in the PMO and you're like, man, I really got to pay attention to these and keep them in my face or other people's faces, stakeholders' faces, so that they're up to date. You can build a dashboard, show it however you want coming from that Jira data. And I mentioned in a little bit, I can show you conditional formatting, and that's where you really start to geek out and get some really interesting visualizations.
All right. So can I ask you one more? And this part I can cut out if it doesn't work, because this is, and talked about this. So I had a gig last year at a company, and they had decided at the PMO level, like, these are the columns we're going to use. And Jira was set up for like 150 teams that way. Okay. But there were teams that did Kanban. Yeah. And when I got to them and we did a value stream, we saw that their work went through like 25 different stages instead of like just the 3 that were available. Okay. But they weren't allowed to modify the Jira instance because it had to be uniform for reporting, whatever. Could I, in this in progress column, create like 2 or 3 columns here for me that don't mess up Jira, that like when I'm looking at it, I know in progress for Jira is actually 4 different steps for me? Is that possible without breaking anything?
It is possible, but it gets a little wonky.
Okay.
You could technically do it. Going back up to here, you can like combine Jira, like, right, you have a Jira card and a Lucid card in the same board. And what you could do, so this is just what we call custom columns, and you can name them and call them what you want.
Yeah.
But it's not syncing back to Jira.
Perfect. Yes.
So what you could do is like I said, it gets a little odd, but you could do what you're describing, but it's not ideal in its current state. So
all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
It's possible, but you're not going to get the nice like sync all the time back with Jira as well.
Well, so what I'm thinking is like if I would be dividing that doing column to 3 different sub columns, that card would stay in doing the entire time. From Jira's perspective, it just never leaves doing. But maybe there's a dot or some way of indicating, it's in like entry, mid stage, getting ready to exit. They're all part of doing. I just wanted this team to be able to represent what they were, how they were working, because it seemed really
Sure.
dumb to tell them like visualize your work, but we have to visualize it in a way that's a lie. That
Sure.
defeats the whole
So
point of it.
yeah, to your point, so what you could do here is not sync the columns back to Jira.
Mhm.
And you can do custom column, name it what you want, right? So if doing is actually
Oh,
consistent
so it takes the timestamp of when it enters doing, and then it takes the timestamp of when it enters whatever syncs to Jira after doing,
so what you could do
right?
here is like for the team, like this status still says to do,
Mm-hmm.
but if to do or doing is broken into three, then in the team view in your board, you're moving it from column 1, column 2, column 3. But then when you change, you can actually change the status on the card itself. And let's say
Awesome.
it's done at that
You
point.
said it was wonky. This is exactly what I wanted.
There you go. I figured it out. But you could do it that way, and it's exactly what you're trying to show and describe. And
It's
that way,
freaking
you're not
awesome, man.
interfering with what the company wants or
Yeah.
stakeholders, but you're adjusting. Talk about being agile, right? Power to the teams,
Yeah.
autonomous.
Giving
teams.
them the agency to do what they need to do. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. I have one more, and then
Okay.
I'll let you do whatever you want to do. What
No,
about
shoot.
a program view? Is there
What
like
if you want a program view?
Yeah, is there a roll-up kind of a thing that I can do, or is that based on what I have set up in Jira as well?
So it's what you have set up on Jira as well, and this is what you can do today. So this is kind of giving you the program view.
Oh, I didn't even notice that it was labeled that way. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you have these are at the epic level,
Yeah.
but your teams are actually going to be working at the task, story, subtask. Everyone has their own way of doing it. You don't really work at a task level at the epic level, right? But stakeholders or maybe whoever is interested doesn't really care about each task. They really want to know like the epic as a whole or the project as a whole. So that's what you can get this view of the program view and start to understand dates and which team, right? Team Epsilon or Delta is working on what.
Okay.
But then using our breakout boards, you can go down into like a specific team itself. So here we're only looking at team beta now.
Okay.
Right. So this is what that team is working on, what they've, committed to do. Here's their timeline. And then getting into the sprints and the Kanban column view, now these are now tasks and not epics. So this is kind of the way of how you would do roll up today. And again, we're actively working on this and how can we solve that problem. But you have your team view according to the tickets that they care about, right?
Yeah.
Show me all the tickets assigned to this team in these sprints. And now you can plan out your sprints, execute on your sprints. But then within the same board, you just go one breakout board over and you've got your program view as well. And so as these epics make progress, get updated, change dates, change dependencies, etc., based off the team, that's still being reflected here.
Okay.
So you get the team view and the program view together.
Can you have a dependency across teams in here?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I guess these are showing within the same swim line, but here you go. So cross teams.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah. Wow. This is great. All right. Now it's your turn. What do you want to show? What have we not seen that's amazing? Because I'm already like my mind's blown already. So
I didn't ever answer your question about capacity, right?
Okay.
I kind of got there, but you see that there's these like little blue circles with numbers on them?
Yeah.
So right now it's 49 and 60. This task has 2 points estimated for it. I'm going to move this back over to do.
Okay.
And it just changed, right? So it's auto-calculating what the capacity is in each of these columns.
Okay.
And how you get that view is, again, same thing, this planning and tracking button. You can do the workload tracker, and it's automatically calculating that for you so you get a good understanding. So I use this, if I'm going to go back to that team view that I was just showing here, we use it because we want to know, right, we have a sprint capacity.
So I'm a product owner and I'm trying to organize the things I'm going to ask for across sprints. I'm obviously not going to ask the team to commit to more than one sprint at a time. Exactly. But I want to know when I've overfilled the bucket, and this is how you do that.
Exactly. So if you know that, this sprint, we typically, historically, the last 5 sprints, we're doing 15 points a sprint, or
Yeah.
call it 10 for this instance.
Mm-hmm.
And you come into sprint planning and it's like, oh, hey guys, like we're at 13 here, like we're over capacity.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What are we going to do? So that's one instance that you're talking about. And also it helps you plan in the future. So you can quickly, a lot based off estimates, like what you might be able to slot in a given quarter. And I used this for a project actually just this year, and we planned out in the future. And then I went back to my stakeholders and my manager and said, hey, you want this project done by this date? That ain't going to happen. Like, we got to do something about it, because when we've planned this out based off of what's realistic for the team, we're like 2 months past the due date of actually completing all the work that we need to.
Wow. This is, it's making my project manager brain all like revved up and excited. This is really, really cool.
Yeah, I use this all the time. I don't know how I could ever do my job without a visual collaboration tool at this point.
And again, you can have them, since everybody's distributed. I mean, there's an increase in people talking about using Obeas when they work. So they have all the visual information in one space at the same time for all the teams to look at together. And this is an easy way to do that. And you can even have the things be connected, so we don't have to update it in 17 different places.
Exactly, because it's all connected to Jira. So one update you make in this board, it's all using the same data. So it's going to stay representative of current state.
That's really cool. What about reporting?
Yeah, good question.
I'm so scared every time I ask you something. Go ahead.
So today you can do reporting inside of Lucid.
Okay.
But you have to really know what you're doing. And this is what I mentioned. We'll show you conditional formatting or formulas here. Yeah. So that's within our what we call our Lucid chart product that I had talked about earlier. I'm just going to go back to the program board, and up here you can switch between products. So the reason we do this is because each product is like purpose built for the thing that it's trying to do, right? With whiteboarding, you don't need a crazy UI. You don't need all these deep tools and functionality. But with intelligent diagramming or flow charting, and you get deep into business processes, things like that, you're going to want more access to those types of things. So if you switch into Lucid Chart, all your content stays the same on the canvas. But we're giving you a different tool set to do a different job or a different type of work, right?
Okay.
So what you can do is, I wish I had actually another board to show you. So over here on the left, there is conditional formatting, and you can create rules, and you can start doing like really interesting things. So this is the default one. You saw everything just turned yellow.
Yeah.
Is if the shape has text in it, it's not empty, then give it this style, color it yellow, right?
Okay.
So based off of, this is very simple and basic, but based off of your Jira data, you can start pulling and doing interesting stuff of like, if let's see, you could do formula or just like text or shape data. So if shape data, now you're pulling, this is all Jira data that I showed you before, all those fields.
Yeah.
So like if due date is past, turn it red, or give it a big red button on it, right? Yeah. So you say icon and give it an X, and then hover text even, and like, hey, this.
And these would live as rules in the system, right?
Yes, rules in the system. So anytime you bring in a new piece of information that fits that rule, it's going to visualize it for you. You don't have to like go look at every piece of data and make sure, right? This is just creating a rule that's always going to be true within your document. Okay.
I think that's really, so it's different than what I was asking. So what I was thinking was, which I would be able to get out of Jira anyway, but like burn down charts and things like that. But what's cool about this is if I do have that Obea set up and it's going to persist, and maybe it's on a big monitor or people are going to be looking at it, every time I have a dependency that threatens a deadline by more than a week, that turns like fuchsia. And then everybody knows when we see fuchsia, it's like, and we freak out and figure out what we're going to do. So it's a visual cue. It's visual formatting to signal to people, hey, pay attention to this thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you can actually do like reporting and things like you're saying. So based off of your Jira data in this Lucid chart view, it's just another way of visualizing all the Jira data that you have access to.
Okay.
You can build, and this is getting quite complex and power
I
user
would never
here.
look at that, but yeah.
I can show you more, but what you can do really interesting things with dynamic shapes inside of
Okay.
Lucid Chart, and it'll auto calculate stuff for you, give you reporting. You could create your own burn down chart if you wanted to. Like it's all there and available.
Yeah.
It's just pretty complex and power user heavy stuff.
But it does represent, I think, a shift in probably how projects are going to be managed in the future as we move towards AI, and that AI doesn't know necessarily when I'm overutilized by too much. But I can tell AI, tell me when I'm overutilized by X%.
Sure.
And then it can flash a warning and tell me, like, dude, pay attention. And this is another way of doing that is completely directed visually at people. So as an information radiator, it's the blinking light on top of the
Yep.
ambulance.
Exactly.
Okay. That's really cool. This was great, man. I appreciate you taking time to show me all this stuff. It's very,
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
it's what's exciting to me is not just that it can do it, but that the way that the information is being presented, the way that you're interacting with it is a different way than I think an agilist would normally do it with cards on a wall, or a project manager would do it in project or whatever, plan view, whatever tool they're using. But it's a
Sure.
nice, it's got feet in both worlds.
Exactly. You hit it spot on. And what's cool about this, right, is it's more collaborative and engaging. So, like, at this point now, you create this plan and you want to share it out. People can come in and start giving sticky notes and like making comments and like, hey, what about this? What about that? Whereas before, if that's in like projects or in a spreadsheet, like you don't have this real time or asynchronous, like a great way to give feedback and comment, collaborate, and like work together on
Oh,
something.
wow. Okay.
Right. And so
Yeah.
it totally changes. Like you said something that is totally how what we're trying to do at Lucid is like change the way people work. Like this is a new thing, visualizing it and being engaging and collaborative. Like once people understand the need for visual collaboration, it really begins to unlock like so much more in the way that they work with their team.
What's so powerful to me about what you did with these post-its here is in a different tool, worked on an exercise you would normally have to do all in the same room. And I was distributed. There were me and two other guys, and we all had different work schedules. And so we used the post-its to post questions to one another and respond to them. So the dialogue was constant. Every day we were, looking at it and responding, having that conversation just in a slower format. But it was always where the work was. It wasn't like, oh, now I got to go look in Slack or Teams and dig
Right.
through that long range of crap to find the one thing that matters. It's a post-it right at the point of concern.
Yep.
And you
And
can
you can,
have the dialogue back and forth.
yeah, and to that point, I can at someone here on the sticky note if you're having a conversation, and it'll send me a notification through email or Slack or however you want. It's like, hey, Preston, like, take a look at this, right? Let me know
Yeah.
what you think. And then I'm getting pinged in Slack. And so I'm like, oh, Dave has this question for me. And then you get that asynchronous where you don't need to be in the same room. And then you also mentioned like the how agilists used to do it on whiteboards and in person.
Yeah.
What really sucked about that, and anyone that's experienced that knows, like there was one or two like uh the agilists at Lucid call them heroes that had to go transcribe whatever you just did on that
Yeah.
whiteboard and go put it into Jira or Azure DevOps or whatever your system of record is. And that was like a 4 or 5 day ordeal, right? To get all that information that was in
Oh,
person on
yeah. Now it's all right there.
digitized. Yeah. But you don't have to do that anymore.
And this is going to sound stupid, but it's important to me to be able to do this with a team. So in the same way, like when we teach, my wife and I teach Kanban to kids, we have them bedazzle their boards, like they make physical boards. But I've been
Yeah.
on teams where we would have like running jokes and stuff. And one of them, like, every time something bad happened, you put up a picture of Boss Hogg or the Dukes of Hazzard's car.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
I
can
love
put that. I can put stickers. I can write notes. My team's personality and sense of humor can be reflected in the board as well without interfering with the data or anything like that. So it becomes not just where we work, but it's who we are, and it allows each team to be its own unique thing and have another layer of their own identity with their work.
exactly. I just pulled up a quick example of that. In our product, we call them team spaces,
Okay.
and you can make them look and feel how you want. Give your team wins, or if you have funny inside jokes. On my team today, from our daily stand-ups, funny things will come up where we talk about what happened over the weekend. And one of the engineers on our team like makes memes of everyone's faces and stuff and like puts it on the board, and it starts to be fun, right?
Yeah.
Or like this question, would you let aliens beam you up? Like you're now bringing personality into the work and what
Yeah.
might have been in a bullpen previously, but now it's all here in your team space.
And it lives there with the work. And there's a part of me that thinks if we were having like a very serious conversation over like Microsoft Project or Jira, like it's about data, don't joke around. This is serious business.
Sure.
But that joking is part of the team's the team members' ability to connect. And the fact that they can build this is what I was referring to when I said Novea. Like they can create their space, personalize it, have all the information in there, have it sync up with the back end system that now they're free to just live here.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing. Wow. All right. So I know that you guys do a lot of stuff for folks that are new to your tool because I went through a whole bunch of it. Do you want to talk about that at all? Or is there anything else that we skipped? This is a lot.
There's a lot here. Go on forever. I think the last thing that is,
You keep going over that big room planning. You might as well click on it at some point.
that people love is this ability to estimate. So we have these quick actions that we call them quick tools here on the left, and we have a bunch of them. We have sticky note banks and like t-shirt sizes, custom shape banks. You can do cool things with AI. And what this does is this is just putting it right on the canvas. So you mentioned for new folks, if I'm facilitating a meeting and someone's never used Lucid before and you say, hey, go find the timer, they're not going to know up here at the top there's a timer. But now if you just stick it in their face on the canvas, they can just access it here, right? Same with sticky notes. You can just drag out and do what you want. You can turn on your collaborator colors so that it personalizes the board. And if you like to have pink as your color up here.
Oh, each person can have their own color. Wow.
Yeah, so you have your own color, and then as each person drags out, if you're red, it'll show red for you, etc. But one of these cool things is these story points. So as you're estimating with your team, everyone can drag and drop. So if I put this over the card, you see here below, drop here, estimate, put it on. And if you have other folks putting as well, you can all like do a vote and estimate together quickly in real time, see the results, talk about it, apply that estimate, and now it's syncing and updating back
as
very well.
Cool.
So that's really cool. Another quick thing that I'll just highlight is visual activities. So these are great ways to prioritize your work, have conversations, understand what's in people's heads.
Okay. So that matrix one, I could add like an Eisenhower matrix on here and organize all my items that way.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you can do Eisenhower matrix. You can do whatever. We have some out of the box templates. You can create your own. And then when you have items in here for your team to come talk about and discuss, you set up the activity, and then everyone can come in here and take it, and they can give their, I think it's this much value. I think it's not it's way too much work for the, not a great ROI. And then you submit, and everyone on their team submits, and you're now giving everyone a voice, and you'll see the results. So if you were
all being different colors because they're all each have their own color.
Yeah, and so like if you put yours in the top left, it would show up here, and then you can have this discussion. And now it's no longer like the most senior person in the room or whoever is dominating the conversation. You're giving everyone a voice, and then you can have a deliberate discussion about what's important.
This is great. This is very brilliant.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm learning about as I've talked to people from Lucid and gone through tutorials is these kinds of tools have layers of depth that most common users like me come to them don't understand, because like
That's right.
normally I would just open it and not look at tutorials because whatever,
Sure.
and then I can't figure out, how to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
How, if I'm new to it, how do I get access to that stuff? Like, how do I learn how to use the tool?
Yeah, great question. So in the bottom right here, we have what we call our in-product learning center.
Okay.
So there's this little question mark. You click on that, and it's going to pull up. We have tons of resources. Our learning and content team is really great. And so you've got getting started, as easy of how do I even use my mouse on the canvas, right? Going all the way in to I was showing you. We have Agile specific ones. So if you're
Wow.
interested in that, we have Agile. You will break down Lucid cards for Jira, Agile visualization badge that we have, and you can get as basic from how do I even navigate left to
Yeah.
right to how do I do one of those crazy conditional formatting rules that Preston did that put a red X on my Jira card if it's overdue.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is great. All right.
So there's loads of content here, and we've got a community as well that's very interactive.
Wow.
And tons of stuff. And this is constantly getting updated, pushing more, things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time to show me how this works. I'm
Of
very
course.
excited about it. So if people want to get in touch, we'll do you first and then we'll talk about the company. So if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn is great. You can
Okay.
connect with me on LinkedIn, message me there. You can also just email me directly at my Lucid email,
Okay.
which is phunter@lucid.co.
Okay.
So
I'll put it in the show notes for the thing.
Great. That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's probably best. Yeah.
All right.
And for the company, if there's something interesting too, you can always directly contact me first, and then we can
Okay.
get the right folks involved. Or also at just our webpage at lucid.co, we'll have all that information available that you need to.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. It was a good time.
It was fun.